I call this Chronicles of a Honda Rancher 350. This thing wouldn't go up a hill. Once you put it in second gear, that was it. It would idle, but it didn't want to idle very well. I thought it was an angle sensor. I replaced that. That didn't fix it. Next, I replaced the CDI unit. That didn't fix it. Then I found some holes in the vacuum lines. So hopefully this will show you a lot about the carburetor and what to look for if your four-wheeler is idling funny, a little slower than what it might need to idle, and especially if you're in first gear and it just doesn't want to go up an embankment once it gets into second gear. So I'll dive right in here and get started. I'm looking at the vacuum line here, which is this one, and nothing looks corroded or too worn. It is a little dirty, but look at this. Then we're going to replace it and see if this thing will finally climb up a hill. Now you can almost squeeze this clip here to where you can push it off, but you may find that a little bit difficult, and it's kind of tough on your fingertips there. But you can get a pair of pliers and just squeeze it a little bit. You don't want to squeeze it too hard, because then you'll ruin this little thing here. Now the view from the other side, where it actually goes into the carburetor, it has another little retaining clip, and it's feasible to pull that off, but we're still not going to be able to put it back on in an easy manner unless we take off the air filter canister. It's just got two Phillips head clamps on there that we can loosen up and just kind of pull it back there. Just know that before you can pull this completely out of here, these two clips can be removed off of this hose, or you can take this shield off and get the clip that's behind here loose. And before you pull it up, you can just go ahead and grab it and pull it. Just pull it through that grommet. That way nothing is going to hang up on you. And once you take it out, it's just so much easier to get in here to pull this thing off, and especially be able to reinstall it. You can almost pull this little retaining clip loose. Almost. The damage in this hose is substantial at the end, but the rest of it looks okay. The only one I can find laying around, it's just not near the same inlet width. What is a possibility is to cut the end of this off where it is damaged. If you look here, this actually may work for troubleshooting purposes, just to cut this end off, and I would still have enough to come around, and just barely enough to where it wouldn't kink it. Of course, I would have to go get another new hose, but this will help me determine whether or not this is the actual problem. So the damage ends about right there. Oh boy, that one's damaged too. Let's see if we can cut this off right at the crack there. All right. And now that I have the vacuum line correctly installed with a shorter hose, I'm going to go ahead and clean this debris off of here. I'm going to block this up so nothing can get in there. I'm just using a hook tool here to kind of loosen this debris. If you have a vacuum cleaner, that may be very useful. But I have this paintbrush that I can just rinse out. Some of this stuff is pretty loose, and when I'm testing it out, I don't want it to be ingested in there, and it needs to be cleaned anyway. But what I want to do is test this out before I put the air filter box back on there. Now this embankment, once I would go up it in first gear, and then I would go to second gear, it would die on me. So we'll see if it does it this time. Starting out in second gear, see, it's not wanting to go. A little bit of smoke coming out too. So I've got it parked, and I've taken the seat back off, connecting both of the damaged vacuum lines. Did not fix the problem. So what it is, it's probably a jet in the carburetor. I'm still not wanting to have to take apart the throttle cable, but I do need to basically pull this carburetor off of the housing here. So I'm going to get started with the fuel line and the other lines that are only necessary to remove it. This has two lines here, but I can take apart this. That way this will still remain connected. These two air lines on here. So the next thing I'll do, since this is turned on and pointing down, you're just going to turn it clockwise to the off position. Next, I'll go ahead and release the tension on this clip here and move it on up the hose here a little further than what I already have. May need to grip this and just give it a twist without damaging it, just to break it loose, and you can kind of see the fuel coming out of there. Of course, we have the fuel line turned off, but there will be some residual in there. In this carburetor, but this metal bracket back here will need to be loosened, and that's going to be on this side. See this Phillips head screw right here? And as rusty as it is, I'll go ahead and put some WD-40 on it. Letting that screw there soak isn't allowing it to break free from there. The other option is to remove the bolts that go into the housing here, then take the little Phillips head loose with a pair of vice grips and replace that screw. Since I can't get a socket in there with a ratchet on it, this is going to be an 8mm wrench. Can feel it breaking free there. Cannot get that screw loose on the carburetor clamp. And we'll get the other one. What I have to do is reach under here to get to the other side of where I can get this 8mm on this other bolt to loosen it up. Right, you can see it right there. Make sure you got gloves on when you're doing this. It finally broke loose there. And once you do get it broke free, besides using your fingers or the wrench, you take a pair of needle nose pliers and maybe make it a little easier on yourself. Either way is going to require patience. Before I take this loose, you can see that O-ring there and how it fits into that housing. And we're just about to get this thing freed up here. And unbelievably, this looks to be recyclable. We'll make sure we don't lose these 8mm bolts either. Got it from the other side. We'll let that rest there for a minute. One thing is for sure, this needs to come off and go back on first. It would be very tedious to put this on as a whole unit again, as opposed to just putting this on and then sliding that on and putting a new clamp around this. I'll try to vice grip this and spin it. Well, that one didn't work, so let's try this one. Finally got this thing loose here. This was just rusted on there and it was not going to turn loose of it. I'm just cleaning this while it's off. And I'm going to reuse the old O-ring. It looks like it's in good shape, so just cleaning it up and get it back on there. See, it looks pretty good. Make sure that's good and seated there. Get that 8mm back on there. Nice and snug on this side. And the bottom is this electrical connection. And that is a 12mm. And when you get that unscrewed, be very careful so you don't ruin your wires. So you may have to twist your wires at the same time. Now we're gonna loosen up these screws. This is for the bottom float pan. And I'm just gonna give these a little bit of a tap. That one loose. That one's loose. That one's broke free. And the fourth one. We're going to clean this. We're going to screw it all the way in. And we're going to back it out between 2 and 2 1/4 turns. Well, yeah, this is probably about as bad as you can get. Just look at this stuff. You can see how it has this little sleeve that goes on there. So just remember how that goes. I got some vent line hose to replace that bad one. That is this line here, because it was shortened before to the point it might be able to be okay there, but you see this pinch that it causes. And it was okay to run it like that for a little while just to see if this was the problem. Of course, unfortunately, it was not the problem. So I'm going to replace this. Got this routed. I've got this hard bend out of it here. Make sure I have plenty enough room. Not too much, but certainly not too short. You can look at this jet and see how corroded it is already without even taking it off. So we'll go ahead and take this loose. I definitely don't see any light through there. I don't see any light going through that one either. I have this piece of fishing line. Yeah, it's totally blocked right there. And that's a good way to be able to test these things. If you can't get a piece of fishing line through here, there's trouble. And this blockage is pretty significant. And you've got these little ports here too. Definitely blocked. And the other jet, you can see the ports on the side of it. It's hitting a blockage right about there. Move over here so don't mess up something. So I'm just going to use these to clean out the jets. I'll have me a nice little handle on the end there. See how thin that is? I'm going to go through these little jet port openings here on the side of this before I reinstall these. So that should have those cleaned and ready for reinstallation here. Okay, that one's nice and snug. I want to make sure this one is snug too. And we're just going to screw this all the way down. Then we're going to unscrew it 2 times. 1, 2. Make sure you put your plastic piece on there. And it's only going to fit on there one way, like so. You want to go around and tighten them gradually. This gasket is old. I definitely don't want to strip these bolts out. Now this is ready for reinstallation. Once I get the plug back on here. Now that's nice and snug. And this again is a 12 millimeter. Wipe this out a little bit. It goes in there easily. We need to put our new clamp on here. Now, since this is the clip that I had to cut and bend and break off, the auto parts store did not have the same width of a clamp. And this is close, kind of, but not really. And there's a difference here. And with this being like it is, this is going to be difficult to fit. So what I do have is this heavy duty zip tie, and that's what I'm going to use because I'm really trying to figure out what my problem is here. So we're going to reinstall this. So we're going to go ahead and place this around it. What I'm going to do is just grab my zip tie. I'm going to slowly make sure it's seated in there. And that's in there good and tight. Now, put this fuel line back on. Connect this back up. Now that everything has been reconnected, I'm going to go ahead and give it a good look over to just make sure. Then I'm going to turn the gas back on. Even though I had it to the off position, a lot of the fuel drained out. And before I put the air box back on, I'm going to take it for a spin and see if it will go up a hill or not. You can see the four-wheeler's idling now. Put it in first. Starts moving up the hill. I'm going to put it in second. See how it's not bogging down. It was right up this little hill, and it was not doing that before, so that was the problem. It was the carburetor jet. Thank goodness. I hope this video was helpful to you. Thanks so much for subscribing to see the current videos I have, and also to see the new ones that are in the works.